Welcome, everybody, to the March 21st, 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Chatham. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 209-885-997#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link at the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with the town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. To authorize this form of meeting, we'll start with a roll call vote of members. Steve?
Steve DeBoer is present.
I'm sorry.
Lee Hovey is present.
Ed Acton present.
And Randy Potash is present, and we all approve this sort of meeting. So the meetings are conducted as follows. We ask if any citizens or non-board members participating in the call via the phone only give their name and the last 4 digits of their phone number for identification purposes. First, the hearing notice is read by staff, Sarah Clark, and then you or your representative presents the appeal or application. Anyone in favor of the appeal or application may speak for up to 5 minutes. There's going to be a clock, and that's a time limit. I may read or summarize all letters received by the board. Anyone against the appeal or application may speak or ask a question, and that would be a 5-minute time limit for that as well. The applicant can rebut testimony. Board members may direct questions to anyone present. The board hears any further information, closes the public hearing, then we deliberate, and the board votes on the appeal or application. There's a roll call vote. All votes are roll call vote. And at the end of the meeting, we close it with a verbal confirmation, and we note the time of adjournment. We don't have any minutes today. I don't think we do. So voting today will be the 5 of us that are here, unless and until the other 2 members arrive, and then we're going to change that around a little. So here we go.
Application number 24-011, Pamela Kindler, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 55 Linnell Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16J, Block 1A, Lot R2. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change non-conforming accessory structures, playhouse/storage shed, and spa, and exterior mechanical system appliance on a non-conforming lot via the relocation of the accessory structures and exterior mechanical equipment and the removal of the spa and construction of a swimming pool. The existing shed is non-conforming and that it is located 18.8 feet from the northerly abutter and 19 feet from the westerly abutter. The existing exterior mechanical system appliance pool equipment is non-conforming and that it is located 12.4 feet from the northerly abutter and 23.3 feet from the westerly abutter. The relocated playhouse/storage shed will be non-conforming and that it will be located 19.4 feet from the westerly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. The relocated pool equipment will be non-conforming and that it will be located 17.9 feet from the northerly abutter and 19.6 feet from the westerly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. All of the structures will be non-conforming and that they are located within the Coastal Conservancy District, floodplain elevation 13, where a 50-foot setback is required. The building coverage will remain non-conforming at 2,971 square feet, where 15% but not more than 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming and that it contains 610 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required. The lot contains 45,354 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Attorney Litchfield, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of the applicant Pamela Kindler. With me today is Lauren Cronin of Gregory Lombardi Designs, who can certainly speak to any environmental questions that you might have. Lauren has been involved, along with Bob Perry of Cape Cod Engineering, in this proposal. I know that you did a site visit, and I trust you did it at low tide. High tide site visits can be interesting unless you stop at Mr. Acton's house for a dinghy or a kayak, but the property has been owned by Mrs. Kindler for almost 20 years, and she would like to make some changes which are actually rather simpler, in fact, than the hearing notice might lead you to believe. There is, as you know, a shed or playhouse constructed a number of years ago there on the top left, labeled as an accessory building by the cursor, and Mrs. Kindler wants to relocate that slightly, make it less non-conforming. She would also like to expand the existing spa into a swimming pool. Part of the reason for doing all of this is grandchildren. So we are seeking your permission because we have a number of nonconformities. When the house was built 50 or 60 years ago, it conformed in every regard. The lot itself was originally about 5 acres. There was an extensive salt marsh on the water side of Linnell Lane, which is now down on Nantucket Sound. But we still have a good-sized lot. I think the hearing notice said 45,000 square feet. That hasn't changed. The landward side of Linnell is still there, but much of it is now within the flood zone because of the change of the flood maps in 2014. So to go into the criteria, and again, Lauren can answer any questions that you might have about the land use plan. As to adequacy of site, including building coverage and setbacks, we have a large lot, at least on paper, but with a shortage of buildable upland, which is common to the entire neighborhood. When the house was built, as I indicated, about 50 years ago, it conformed in all respects, but notwithstanding the current nonconformities as to lot size, setbacks, and buildable upland, the site is adequate for the existing structures. If you approve the special permit, that will remain the same. The site is adequate for replacing the spa with a swimming pool and the relocation of the playhouse and the exterior mechanical appliance systems. That they're going to be relocated, thank you, Sarah, from one location in the northeast to another location in the northeast. But both the playhouse and the generator condensers, pool equipment actually, will be less non-conforming where proposed to be sited than when they are at present. There's no change in coverage, and the pool itself, as I indicated, complies. As compatibility of size, on the third page of the handout, we have the usual showing of comparable properties. We have the largest lot in the neighborhood, but with a somewhat smaller house than those on neighboring properties with a footprint of just under 3,500 square feet. That's not going to change, of course. It is comparable to others in the neighborhood. If you approve the special permit, you can do so based on a finding that there will be no change in the size of the house or the outbuildings, and the playhouse will be located further from the sideline than at present, as well as behind a cedar row. I suspect you walked around and you saw that it's a fairly isolated location. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, there are existing nonconformities, as Sarah read. There is no increase in nonconformity. The northerly playhouse encroachment toward the sideline is completely eliminated, and the encroachments of the pool equipment and the other side of the playhouse are decreased in proximity. As a suitability of site, the house was built under prior land use regulations, as I've said. Conservation Commission heard the proposal in January. Lauren, again, can speak to that. The letter that they have indicated that you will have, the chair will read, indicates that they can issue an order of conditions. We will continue to work with the Conservation Commission in regard to the pools surround. We are proposing to address one of their concerns, that the surrounding area patio be dry laid. So we think that, as the letter indicates, that it can be conditioned. As to scale, sighting, mass, views, and vistas, the scale and mass of the house are consistent with the neighborhood. So without impact on views and vistas, the term streetscape may not really apply to Linnell Lane, or it's somewhat limited. But the scale and mass will be unchanged. The proposal is without impact on the streetscape. The changes, again, are at the rear of the lot, behind the cedar row and other vegetation, as well as set far back from Linnell Lane or Chatham Harbor, which are essentially interchangeable terms. As to compatibility of site, it's a residential use that will continue. We have, as to adequacy of sewage and water, we have town water and a Title V for 4 bedrooms. A new septic system, as shown on the plans that you have, is being installed as part of the proposal. There are no issues as to traffic flow or safety. All utilities are present in the neighborhood. The question, as you know, is whether the proposed relocation of the playhouse, relocation of the pool equipment, without a change in gross floor area or living area, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current non-conforming structures, plural, on a non-conforming lot. The relocated shed and pool equipment, again, will be less non-conforming. The pool itself complies with setbacks. Almost all of the lot is within the AE flood zone, as is the house itself, but the changes are not visible from a public way and are shielded from abutters. So in light of the criteria and the plans in this location, I think that you can find that the proposed changes are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and Lauren or I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. So, does anybody here or on Microsoft Teams would like to speak in favor of this application? Please make it known. I don't see anybody. I will read the 2 correspondences that we have. The first one is from Judith Giorgio, the health agent, on March the 14th, 2024. I have reviewed the plan to add a pool and accessory shed to this property. The new pool will necessitate a relocation of the leaching field as proposed. A permit application and plans must be submitted to the health department for review. The plan looks acceptable. And then from the conservation agent on March 1st, 2024, that letter says the project was heard on January 10th, 2024. At the time, the commission requested some changes to the project, including a decrease in the size of the patio. The project will be conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetland Protections Act and the town local wetland bylaw, chapter 272, thereunder, if approved. Is anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that would like to speak against this application? Please make it known. Or has a question? Nope. Seeing none. Questions from the board? David Veach, please.
I have no questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Steve?
The only comment I have is I guess it's probably a good idea that you're moving that shed. Might buy you a little bit of time. I see that there's a 16-inch oak that's being removed. I guess this is probably more of a conservation issue, but did they request any sort of remediation or mitigation?
If I could ask Lauren to respond to that.
Lauren Cronin from Lombardi Design. They did ask, have a whole mitigation plan that includes replacing oak trees, and
So as long as they're handling that?
they're aware of that, and
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And is there any kind of a fence, or what's the protection over the pool? Is there protection around the pool, or?
There is an auto cover on the pool,
okay.
which will, in Chatham, can take the place of a
Okay,
pool enclosure fence.
okay. And the health department requests are going to be, or have been
Yeah,
addressed?
the plans for the septic system have been developed but not submitted, pending
Right.
what we hope is your approval.
Right, as long as that's being taken care of. Thank you, that's it, thank you.
Lee?
No questions.
No questions? Okay, how about a motion?
I'll move to close the hearing, move into deliberations.
And would you like to second that?
Sure. Ed Acton, second.
All right. Steve?
I
No,
think
no,
it's.
it would just be
Oh,
yes.
yes.
That's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes was good. Lee?
I vote yes.
Dave?
Veach votes yes.
And Ed?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Now deliberations. Now go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I don't have anything else to ask. I think it's a good project, and, you know, I think you've addressed all the issues, so good luck.
And Lee?
Yep, I feel the same way. I think it'll be nice. I wish you the best of luck, and I approve.
Okay. Dave Veach?
Certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and it meets the applicable criteria, and I'm happy to support it.
And Ed?
The same, not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I guess I do have one question.
Sure.
The mechanicals, there's a generator, maybe a heat pump for the shed or an air conditioner and the pool equipment. Are those gonna be raised to be FEMA compliant because you are in the floodplain, or has any thought been put into that?
I can't tell you, unless Lauren can answer, I can't tell you off the top of my head whether they have to be raised for FEMA compliance, but I'm sure Mr. Briggs will tell us if they do
Yes.
need to be.
Mr. Briggs?
It's not a substantial improvement, doesn't qualify as a substantial improvement, so although it would be nice if they were elevated, they're not required to be elevated.
Would that be in their best interest to elevate them?
I would think so.
We appreciate that comment, we'll pass it along. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Acton? No? No? I think it meets the 12 criteria, and I'm not a big fan of pools, but I don't think it'll be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I would vote yes. So, let's take a vote.
And and I would suggest that I don't think we need to apply conditions
Right.
to this.
No, you have your own neighborhood there, it looks like.
Yeah.
And, all right, so let's vote on this then.
Well, so I would move approval of the application as presented without any of our usual other conditions.
Ed, can you second that, please?
Yeah, Ed Acton seconds it.
Your job too. And let's vote. Steve?
Steve DeBoer votes to approve.
Lee?
Lee Hovey votes to approve.
Veach votes approve.
Ed Acton votes to approve.
And as do I, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming. All right, so whenever you're ready, Sarah, we'll go to 251 Kroll Road.
Application number 24-015, Three Fins Coffee Roasters, care of Ronald Reddick, 120 Owl Pond Road, Brewster, Mass. 02631. Lessee of property located at 251 Kroll Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 13G, Block 4, Lot 2C. The applicant proposes to incorporate a light industry and manufacturing operation, chocolate manufacturing, and cold brew coffee production within a restaurant, coffee shop, in a general business zone, which requires the grant of a special permit. The lot contains 1.23 acres in a GB3 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Sections 3C, 4C, 16, and 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
Okay, so Mr. Reddick, I presume.
Yes.
And who do you have with you?
This is
Catherine
Catherine Berry, the other owner of Three Fins Coffee.
All right, well,
So,
welcome.
thank-
So,
Thank you for having. One thing to note, when we applied, we were gonna lease the space. We are now purchasing the space.
okay, good to know.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes any difference, but as we've requested, we want to add our cold brew production and our bean-to-bar chocolate manufacturing at the new location. Out of the 9,000 square feet, about 7,000 is going to be dedicated to the coffee and the chocolate space. 1,200 of that will be the pure chocolate space, which is the yellow zone area. The blue zoned area is going to be our cold brew production.
just these.
Currently, we do that over in West Dennis, and we're out of space. So having the additional room for the cold brew is going to be really key. That's all room temperature brewed, kegged, and then delivered to our wholesale customers throughout New England. Not a lot of water usage except for brewing it, a lot less than the pool. Cleanup is minimal when you clean the kegs. We have a very large septic system, that is more than adequate for the flow. On the chocolate side, the chocolate doesn't like water at all. It will seize up in a minute. So in the actual production of chocolate, we don't use any water. We try to keep water as far away from the production area as we can. There is some cleanup of some of the different vessels at end of production periods, but again, it's minimal. As I say, chocolate is not a big waste product. When you look at the impact, our big waste product out of that is cocoa husks. When you roast the cocoa bean, you actually go through a cracking and winnowing process to take the shell off and separate that from the cocoa nibs. So we have some really nice garden material that we'll try to make available to the community as far as cocoa husks to use in your garden. Other than that, there's not a lot of waste that gets made into a chocolate bar. Let's see what else. Going
You
through
have the
list.
criteria in front of you?
I have the
There's-
criteria.
There's 10 criteria.
Right, so, like I say, we'll be using about 1,200 square feet on the space out of, we have a total of 9,200 square feet in the whole building. The lower level, we're gonna save for a later date for leasing out. Out of the 7,000 square feet above, like I say, we'll be using 1,200 square feet. The rest will be our coffee house and our seating. I say the space is gonna be totally renovated, the adequacy is gonna be great. We're going through basically a tear down back to the studs, new insulation, new HVAC system and air conditioning, updating the electrical, updating the plumbing to be suitable for our needs. So we should be good to go. Impact on the traffic flow for those two portions of the business. We'll have a few employees full-time and then probably a few part-timers coming in. We have the parking space, so the minimal impact in the area for that. Visual impact, we're not changing the exterior, we're not adding to the building. We will be repainting it and new roof on it, so actually going to improve the appearance of the current building. Sewage disposal, I say right now, the septic was designed for a large pool gym. We only need a fraction of the capacity of the existing sewage system. Same with the water. We have minimal water needs. Noise and litter, really no appreciable noise in making the chocolate or either the cold brew. It's a very quiet process.
And our hours are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., so it's not an evening disruption to the neighborhood.
Right. Like I say, the litter from the chocolate or the cold brew. Cold brew, there is coffee grounds that are made from the cold brew making. Again, that's a compostable material that will be made available to the community. Like over at our current location, we have a farm that takes our coffee waste weekly. We'll try to do a similar arrangement, for our coffee waste here. Like I say, in the cocoa nibs or husks are really nice for the community, so try to make that available. Compatibility of the proposed use with the surrounding land. I think it's a great ad. When we roast the cocoa beans, it smells like brownies. So if you're walking by, you'll smell brownies. So I see that as a plus. But, we aren't impacting the external vegetation at all. I say that's, we'll be improving the landscape around the building from what it currently is. There's a lot of overgrown vegetation over the last 4 years, so we'll be cleaning that up as we get ready to open.
Also, as part of the previous approval process that we have, we're actually going to be improving drainage on that side, which has been a problem in the past and complaints.
lower
So
down.
that is something that we will be doing as far as improvements to the actual site.
I say, and as far as the impact to the community and neighborhood and town visual characteristic, like I say, we've got a very, I would say, nice aesthetic as far as how we design our spaces. That is actually going to be a nice addition to the Chatham community. We kind of have this industrial surf vibe, beach vibe going on. If any of you have been over to the West Ennis location, it's a big community gathering space. The chocolate space is going to be behind glass walls. People will be able to see it. We're going to do tours and classes and that. So we really want people to see, how is your chocolate bar made? And, bringing in guest chocolatiers to make like truffles and things like that. So it should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a nice addition, I think, to the community. So that's about it.
All right, so you're not a formula business establishment by definition, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
just-
We're a bit unique.
Yeah, right. All right, so at this point, does anybody here or on Microsoft Teams wish to speak in favor of this application? Please indicate if so. Seeing none, I will read the correspondences, and I think there are 5. Now, Judith Giorgio, our health agent, on March 13th, 2024. I have reviewed the plan for a special permit to convert the property at this address to a coffee roaster coffee shop. The proposal is an appropriate use of this property. Discussion with the owners regarding the requirements of the food code for the design of the food preparation areas have ensued. The property has a specific system that is adequate for the business, and no additional flow over is in its design capacity is proposed. I have no concerns. Then, from, the planning board heard, and this was on March 12th, 2024. The planning board heard a site plan amendment for this property at their January 22nd, 2024 meeting and voted to approve with conditions that the change of use, the conditions of the change of use from commercial recreation, a health club, to a restaurant, and light industry and manufacturing. So meaning light, not a lot. Okay, let's see. March 6, 2024, we have a letter from the Conservation, I believe. Wait a minute, what's this one? Oh, I saw Kristen. Okay. Good morning. Attached, you will find a parcel balance for 251 Crowell Road. They still owe a small amount towards the first half of the real estate. There is also an outstanding water bill. I would like to thank you in advance for your time and assistance on this matter. Have a nice day.
We've brought it up to our closing attorney, so that will be
Sure.
taken care of before we close on the property.
Okay. And, all right. Let's see, this one is from Robert and Elizabeth Kroll, and they don't have a deed on this, but
We received that March 5th.
March the 5th, okay? Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, as abutters to 251 Crowell Road, we welcome and approve the Three Fins Coffee Roasters and the prospect of a thriving business to this property. Unfortunately, as abutters of Jason and Kathleen Nye owned property, we are very leery of any promises or agreements presented by them. We have been asking for years for their cooperation and maintenance of the broken fence and rotted trees that litter our property and present the danger of injury. The Nyes are usually unresponsive and not honest. We respectfully request that the dead trees be removed to prevent further risk of harm. Also, that a fence of proper height be installed to screen the parking lot and the proposed outside seating area. We look forward to having a coffee and chocolate business next to us and wish Kathleen and Ron all the best. Thank you for the opportunity to respond, and please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. We'll get to that later. And, let's see. This is from, this is from Thad Eldridge. Dear zoning members, I have granted permission for Mr. Reddick to use the plans for from a prior property owner for the purposes of planning and permitting. I wish them nothing but success with their endeavor. I also look forward to enjoying their coffee. That's it. All right. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to ask a question or speak against this application? If so, please indicate. No? This is a good time for him to respond to the letter. Yeah, would you like to respond to that letter about
Yeah.
someone else, not to you? Yes?
No problem. We've spoken to the Crowells when we were up on one of our numerous site visits there, And, you know, I totally agree with them. There's some dead trees that, you know, we already discussed with them that need to come down, you know, clean up along that property line. The fence is an eyesore, to say the least. So that is already planned to, you know, work with them on a new fence, get rid of all the dead trees, clean that whole property line up. I say the basic landscaping on the whole property needs some maintenance.
Okay, so questions from the board? Dave Veach.
Yeah, so, and I just wondered, curious, in that letter, the Coles referenced a patio area, but I didn't see that
We
indicated on the plan.
we haven't figured out exactly what we're gonna do with that. Once we kind of get in there and see how the layout's gonna be, we'll come back and say, here's
Yeah.
kind of where we're thinking on the site plan, you know, and ask for approval on that.
Okay, yeah, that's the only thing that I had noticed, so,
So,
thanks, yeah.
If I could ask a building commissioner, do they need to come back about a patio?
I'm not sure. I would confer with my colleague, Sarah Clark, on that.
So if they're going to be doing outdoor dining with service out there, they would need planning board approval for site plan approval. They will need approval from the Historic Business District Commission for any signage, patios, outdoor areas, any changes to the structure or site aesthetically.
Okay, yeah, because we were thinking, you know, some gravel with a few picnic tables. Okay, so we'll bring that up with the Historic District. Okay, thank you.
Ed, questions?
No questions.
No questions? Steve?
I had a couple questions. One you kind of touched on was the hours of operation, and you mentioned it was about 7 to 5. I also know that you're gonna, I see a loading dock plan, so I expect that you're gonna be receiving and shipping bulk items.
We get our supplies for the coffee house up there. So we get our milk is all in glass bottles. So we have our dairy deliveries. We have frozen ready to bake pastries. Our paper goods come in. And then, you know, about once a month, we have a bigger truck coming in with pallets of cocoa beans.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That's about it.
is that a, you know, during the day kind of
It's
thing, or an
during the
early
day.
morning thing?
It's during the day. Usually the Cape Cod Express gets there like 3 in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, okay. The reason I'm asking is because you're sort of surrounded by residential properties. And, you know, I'm really hoping that you're gonna be very respectful of their privacy and their, you know, that you're not gonna be, there's not gonna be trucks backing in
Oh,
there
no,
at 5
no,
o'clock in the
it's-
morning
it's-
and everything else.
We've got, deliveries, let's see, was it
So
Wednesday?
deliveries never come before 6 AM, and they're usually, the very first delivery might be about 7 or 7:30 in the morning, because we're not there to accept it.
Okay.
And we only get deliveries like once a week from any of our vendors, and the vendors, there's really only like 3 primary vendors. So you would see 3 trucks.
And they're the smaller
Once a
trucks.
week,
We
right.
don't get the big semis in there.
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
a little box cube truck that comes in and so we don't get all the beeping and the heavy diesel noise.
Okay. And then the last question I guess I have is that, I guess as you drive in on the right-hand side, there's a mention of an existing grass parking.
That was a previous easement that had been granted, but the terms of the easement were once it was sold or released, the easement is gone.
All right, so
that
you have
parking
no
is gone.
plans of using that?
Correct.
We got
Okay.
plenty of parking.
Okay, thank you.
Lee, questions?
Yes, hi. And how many parking spaces do you have available for customers once maybe you're?
42,
42?
yes.
Wow, okay, thank you.
So my question is about the pool in the back. Are you gonna attempt to use that for seating, or?
It's gonna be seating. The pool
Yeah.
is. yeah.
I'm gonna have the building commissioner chime in on that notion.
And I've spoken to the applicant about this before, but one of the reasons the health club closed down was for ADA accessibility to the pool and to the lower level. They're not using the lower level, but the seating will need to be able to be accessed by disabled persons.
Right.
So they're
Can
talking
you bring
about.
the plans up real quick?
Sure, thank you.
And, is the laser, that's not the laser pointer. Oh, yeah, that is. So what we've done is right here, there'll be a platform, and the ramp is gonna go along here to meet the ADA requirements, dropping into the pool for the seating area. I do have updated plans. We're gonna submit that with our building permit application.
Do you have any comment on that, Mr. Briggs?
No, that's fine. It's just that the disabled persons are entitled to sit anywhere in the restaurant that anyone else would be able to sit, so they need to make provisions for access to the lower level inside the pool.
Yeah, state law.
Yes.
Yeah, we weren't, originally we thought having the 2 ADA spaces, percentage out of it was adequate, but
Yeah, there's always
we-
something.
always something. That one's easy to correct, so.
Sure, sure. Anybody else have any questions? Did I ask you already? I already forgot.
I don't remember, I forgot. I think I asked a question. I do have another comment,
please.
but just, just as a comment, and you take this as a suggestion perhaps for you. I don't remember exactly, but I spent some time swimming in that pool and going up and down and in and out of that club. And all I remember is suggesting to the current owner, the one you purchased from, that I thought that they could really improve the staircase that goes up to the entry.
I agree.
And, because I think it's either like, something is wrong, something in the width of the steps. They'd be better off to make it a stairway that meets the height, the rise and run of, rather, because the way it's stretched out, it's just an awkward access. And I would suggest to you that you look at that and look at ways to improve that
Yeah,
access.
because right now it's a wood sleeper with a bit of grass, then
Right.
wood sleeper and grass, and it isn't all equal stepping. What we're thinking of doing is keeping the wood sleeper, but then actually putting a piece of bluestone and, getting all the rises equal going all the way up.
Yeah, but I think the other part of it too might be, that just because, I've built some stairs in my time. The other part of it might be that it's been done to meet that slope.
Right.
But part of that then is that you end up with more than a step between the rises.
Correct.
So it ends up being kind of an awkward, like, stride and a half between the rises, whereas maybe if you compressed it and, put a retaining wall, and you would be better off with it meeting the rhythm of a stairway.
I mean, that would probably be very doable. We already need to work on that slope to put in the ADA ramp
Yeah.
access, so, maybe cut into the slope a little bit, do more of a normal staircase with a platform up at the top.
Yeah, it's just something that I would suggest you look at. I think it
Yeah.
would be an improvement for folks getting in and
Noted.
out. Yeah.
We'll talk to our builder. I mean, I had been looking at, I've walked up that quite a few times and like, it is a little odd.
So, good, so it's not just my imagination.
No,
I'm glad to
no,
hear
no.
that. Okay, that was it, Randy, thanks.
Ed, did you have anything else? No? And what about, I forgot to ask about mechanicals and generator and all that.
We've got, right now, the plan is we're ripping out all the current HVAC, all the pool plumbing and everything. We don't need pool plumbing and all of that, and that was all in the mechanical room in the back. That is all getting gutted. We're putting in 2 brand-new high-efficiency HVAC systems. One is an exterior one, they'll be along the back. The other one goes up in the attic space for the one side. So that's gonna be all upgraded and updated. Right now, it's very old. And then the hot water will be all on-demand hot water heat. So,
And I was kind of interested in why you said, why all the milk is in glass containers. Because I'm a big fan of that. I try to only
recyclable-
drink out of glass.
Recyclable,
Yeah.
it's local dairy
Yeah.
up by Drake. And the milk is
It's
fantastic.
part of
better
our
like-
sustainability policy. We
Uh-huh.
really try to reduce as much plastic waste and trash as we can, which gets back to the composting that we do. We work with local farms to pick up, our composting. So we just reduce the amount of trash going out of the
Yeah,
place.
They trained you in Brewster, sounds like.
So,
They trained you well. And-
I grew up with the milk bottles.
Beautiful,
You know,
yeah.
with the little door in our
Yeah.
back wall, and I just thought, why did we ever go away from glass?
No, I know. I won't even drink milk out of anything else. And then the other thing, just so you know, that there's a Chatham Community Garden very close by. And I'm sure if you talk to the chairperson there, they'd be interested in your product.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Good.
So what about your plans for construction and conditions?
I'm not quite sure what the question is.
Okay, so you're gonna have certain conditions on when you could do your building. So, let's see.
Aside from the accessible improvements to the yard, I believe all the construction is just interior.
It's all interior.
All interior,
Oh, yeah,
okay,
it's all interior.
okay, very good, very good. So, Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, we frequently, in certain instances in neighborhoods and things, will regulate exterior construction during the summer months. But in this case, I don't see first of all, there's not that much exterior, and mostly it's interior work. They have plenty of space on site. So the only condition, sort of our standard conditions, that we would probably apply is that all vehicles and construction activity should be contained on site or in neighboring properties with the owner's permission.
Right. I mean, we should be fine. The only exterior work that's gonna make a little bit of noise for a day or two is re-roofing. You know, and then we've got a few rotted pieces of wood to replace exterior, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Perhaps we put the time frame.
Oh, right, and so then the other part is that we will, during the summer months, generally we'll go June 30th to Labor Day. We will frequently impose condition of construction activity be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily and no work on weekends.
That should be
And that's
fine,
in order to.
yeah. The roof should be long done by then, that's the
So
first thing we're gonna do.
those are the conditions that we would apply to an approval. So,
What, did you have something?
Yep. What's that?
Oh, we're gonna close the hearing. Yeah, we will. Okay. I knew that.
What- so-
Okay, so let's close the hearing.
So, yeah, move to close the hearing, move into deliberations.
Yes, very good, very good.
Ed Acton seconds.
Very good. Steve?
I approve.
Lee?
I approve.
Dave?
I approve.
And Ed.
I approve.
And I approve as well. Okay, so deliberations. Steve?
I think it's a good project, you know, I think you've explained it well. You know, as long as, you know, you can minimize the impact to your neighbors, I think it's a nice project, and I think a lot of people are probably looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Yeah, we're gonna go through the criteria. Okay, so the board needs, no, go ahead, Lee?
I agree. I always like supporting businesses in the town of Chatham, and I am thrilled to see that something's happening with that building now, which is, congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
And I wish you all success.
Thanks.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, this is, yeah, really good to see some viable, someone come along with a viable plan for this building. And I guess I would just, as a former owner of the Chatham Candy Manor, I'd officially welcome you to, and the chocolate part to town. It's
Thank you.
nice to have that. It's certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It meets all of our criteria. I'm just, the only thing that I'm hoping to do is keep my dog, who tends to be eating bark mulch these days. I'm trying to keep him away from the cocoa
Oh, yeah,
husks
good point,
mulch.
yeah.
So, but other than, no, this is a great project and I will support it.
Oh, very good. Ed, deliberations?
No, certainly not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I think it's going to be a nice addition. Any opportunity we have to get more clean manufacturing jobs into Chatham is just a plus. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to state that the criteria for this, and that you apparently have met, we all think so. Special permits may be granted when it's been found that the use involved will not be detrimental to the established or future character of the neighborhood, and that the town, or the town, and when it has been, and it's also been found that the use involved will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. So I support it, and surprised no one's asked if you brought samples, but had it happen. Kidding around. So,
Once everything's approved, we'll bring some samples.
all right. So, voting. Dave Beach?
Well, first of all, I think I should move approval. So I would move approval of the application as submitted with the conditions that, I need to find the conditions here, but it's that, well, that all vehicles and construction activity be contained on site or neighboring properties with the owner, with the permission of the owner. And that from June 30th to Labor Day, no, there will be no, getting lost here. The hours, work hours will be from 8 AM to 5 PM daily with no work on weekends.
Very good. Second, Dave? Ed?
Ed Acton seconds.
All right, voting. Steve?
I vote to approve.
Lee?
I vote to approve.
Dave?
Beach approves.
And Ed?
Ed approves.
And I approve as well, so that's unanimous. Congratulations and
Thank you very
best
much.
of luck.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will return after that.
asked if they were going to raise the mechanicals in there because it is a floodplain. I didn't say anything about the shed slash playhouse slash.
Okay, so welcome back. Part 2 of the March 21st, 2024 Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. We're going to have different voters for the balance of the hearing. Dave Nixon is here, and Paul Semple is here, full members, and Steve is going to be voting from me because we have a policy whereby when we have all our members, we rotate the associates quite often. And so that's how that's going to work today. It's a good policy I adopted from our chair emeritus. So all that being said, we will move to the next application. Sarah, whenever you're ready. 9 Scallop Terrace.
Application number 24-018, Robert A. Napolitano and Julie D. Napolitano, 200 Hart Street, Beverly, Mass. 01915. Owners of property located at 9 Scallop Terrace, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 15A, Block 9C, Lot H14C. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling and a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 8.19 feet from Scallop Terrace, 4.26 feet from the southerly abutter, 12.7 feet from the westerly abutter, and entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District, floodplain elevation 13. The proposed dwelling will be nonconforming in that it will be located 4.71 feet from Scallop Terrace, where a 40-foot setback is required, 4.53 feet from the southerly abutter, 2.88 feet from the westerly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required, and entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District, where a 50-foot setback is required. Also proposed is the installation of a new driveway as allowed by special permit. The existing building coverage is 758 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 772 square feet, where 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 0 square feet of buildable land where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 4,642 square feet of land area where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6 and 9, and Sections 5B and 8D2B of the protective bylaw.
Welcome, gentlemen. Please state your names for the record.
Rob Napolitano, homeowner.
Donnie Dunham, owner of DeMartin Dunham Builders.
Okay, and do you have somebody online?
We do. We have Asa Mintz on.
Hello, Asa Mintz, AJM Site Design, if you can hear me all right.
We can hear you. Thank you very much, and
Great.
please go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, folks. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to come back. We were here December 21st, as you know, and took some time and really in full consideration of all of the commentary and some of the feedback from both the committee as well as our neighbors. And we think put together a revised plan that hopefully meets your needs and requirements. So first and foremost, we took our square footage down from 1,492 to 1,388. By doing so, we took out considerable mass from the second-story living space. So we created a shed dormer, in effect, which really emulates and maps to the homes in the neighborhood. As you can see from the drawing now, much smaller in dimension at the top level. You can see the shed dormer from the 2 side views. The revised square footage also brings us really within scope of some of the neighboring homes. Secondly, we had a 2-door garage, originally changed to a single-door garage now. We're going to shrink the driveway as well in consideration of that. Thirdly, we took our catwalk down. There was some concerns about the catwalk in the front of the house, the entrance around the house being too large. Reduced that by 7 feet, which now the entry stairs should just pass the front door. So it's driveway to front door for that catwalk, as you can see, right above the garage door. And that's also consistent with a number of homes in the neighborhood. We took our old dimension from the deck down. We had 12 feet back on the width. We took that down to 10 feet. The length is 23 in length. We're using a good percentage of that for our utilities up on the deck on the second floor landing. So that now opens up space. It also gives us space for, there's some concern around the septic tank and the pump chamber. We'll have the open access as well for that, so we won't have any post, impeding that as we build that deck. And then lastly, we had a balcony over the second floor outside the master bedroom. We removed that as well. Replaced that with a triple window.
okay? So as discussed previously, the residence is within the existing footprint. It's 748 square foot, not 758. I think that number, I'm not sure if that 758 number came from on the building coverage. Sarah, is that accurate? I had it 740. I don't know.
So it is saying 748, but that's to the foundation footprint. We
Okay.
measure to corner board.
Don't- yeah.
So I confirmed
Okay.
with
That's correct.
your
Okay.
builder that.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. So the existing patio removed in the front, as we talked about, to accommodate the garage, driveway, and decking. Asphalt and a parking area to the right of the home will be removed. We'll mitigate it. We're going to replace that with shells so that the asphalt drive will go away. And then so that's pretty much it in terms of the square footage and changes. In terms of the zoning criteria, adequacy of site, size of site, including the limits of maximum building coverage. Its non-conforming, as we talked about, exceeds 15% of threshold, 16.33 exactly. We're proposing to reduce net slight to 16.11. The lot is also non-conforming with setbacks from 4 to 25 feet. The change we proposed to the front and rear accommodate the driveway and decking. Compatible with size for proposed structure, we think it's now consistent with newly constructed neighboring homes on both our street, Oyster, as well as Clamshell behind. The design we're sensitive to scale and massing now, and we've maintained existing building coverage. So we think we've met the criteria to get there in terms of mapping and look and feel of that neighborhood. Extent of proposed increase in non-conforming nature of the structure. It's only non-conforming to height in the right side setback. As is the case with other approved constructed process homes in the area, the outdoor living space is to be elevated, with the house transforming the existing patios to elevated decks. The changes to the front of the home will be to accommodate the driveway and the front entrance. Suitability of site. The proposal will improve any stormwater runoff that can run the neighboring property. The impervious areas will be eliminated in the driveway, transformed as we talked about, the shells. And Conservation Committee has approved the project, certifying the impact of wetlands as satisfactory. Impact of scale. The new structure aligns with the previously identified new homes in the neighborhood from a design, aesthetics, and structural perspective. The position of the lot is consistent with neighboring homes, including the garage and driveway access and the elevated decks. We've minimized the impact on vistas and views for neighboring properties by maintaining the same footprint. So the views front and back, the deck in the back is a view out to the ocean as well as the front of the house. Compatibility of proposed site with the exception marine or all the neighboring uses are residential. Adequacy of method of sewage. Existing shared with Title V septic exists off the property, common leaching field. Impact on traffic, there's no impact. Noise and litter, no impact. Adequacy of utilities, they're adequate. Impact on neighborhood and town and visual character, not applicable. And then for those in the flood plan, the last item, item 12, additional criteria. The additional expansion of the deck will not impact the impervious areas, so we'll have impervious areas beneath the deck as well. So in summary, we think we developed a plan now that takes in consideration all of the factors and prerequisites, functional and conforming aesthetically, and we took all objections, we think, from our budding neighbors and adjacent neighbors. We believe it can contribute to the overall beautification of the area, and we look forward to your discussion and opinions and moving forward with the project. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Is there anybody here or in Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none, okay, I will read the correspondence. And we have from Judith Giorgio, the health agent, on March 14th, 2024. I have reviewed the plan to demolish the existing dwelling and rebuild a new dwelling. The property is approved for 2 bedrooms and is part of a shared septic system for the neighborhood. The plan shows a deck with supports around the septic pump chamber. The poles can not be on top of the tank, and access to the tank's covers must be available at all times. Let's see, March 8th, we received a letter from Christina Bassett, and that is from the, the Historical Commission. And it says, on November 21, 2023, the Chatham Historical Commission found that the home on 9 Scallop is not historically significant and did not impose a demolition delay. They stated that the neighborhood has changed so much, so the home is no longer historically significant. And we have a letter from Conservation, and that was on December 11th, 2023. The project was heard on December 6th, 2023, and was scheduled for an order of conditions on March 6th, 2024. The applicant has requested to continue to April 3rd, 2024. The project will be conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's local wetland bylaw promulgated thereunder, if approved. That concludes the correspondence. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to ask a question or has an objection to this application? Please indicate if so. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
No, I was just looking at the site plan, and I'm not sure that, I just, because having been out there and looked at the neighbors and various things, some of them have put patios underneath their decks. Were you planning on doing that? It doesn't show that in the plan.
No, we're not.
Okay,
No.
all right. I think that's the only question I have at this point, Randy, thanks.
Sure. Okay, Ed, questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The elevated rear deck, I believe you said you reduced that from the previous plan?
It's 12 feet initially to the neighboring hedge.
Yeah.
It's 10 feet now in from the neighboring hedge.
But it looks like you're roughly 3 feet from the property line and roughly 3 feet from the property line. So that's an increase of the non-conformity by about 10 feet, I believe.
Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
That's correct.
The challenge was, Ed, in the sense that we're raising it to meet to be flood compliant. Their outdoor living, limiting it or reducing it less than 10 feet didn't really fit furniture per se, unless, to David's point, they were at ground level with some sort of outdoor living. But you would still need access to get to the first floor.
Okay.
The advantage, Ed, is the hedge is above the deck level. So even at 10 feet, all we're seeing is the roof line of that house. The hedge is growing at about 1.5 to 2 feet a year. So it'll exceed, by the time we finish construction, it'll exceed that deck level and eye level. And it'll continue to grow. It's a fairly sizable, if you've seen it, fairly sizable hedge.
Yeah, no,
Between
my
the property
concern
line.
was it seems like the deck's gonna be about the same level as the hedge, and you're gonna be,
It's a little bit low.
Looking
It's a little
like
bit low. I measured out, so it's gonna be just a little bit low. And I think next year, when it's constructed, it'll probably actually it'll probably another foot of the hedge growth. So we think it'll be lower than that.
okay. The second question, it looks like you have a generator on the deck. Is that gonna be, is that like a whole house, natural gas, 22 kilowatt generator?
That's correct, Ed. I mean, in the size house, it won't be that large, but
Yeah,
it will be whole house.
okay.
And obviously, to meet flood requirement, it has to be at that level.
Okay. No other questions?
Okay, Dave Nixon, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I'm correct, you have moved the house closer to Scallop, is that correct?
No, it's
No.
not.
No.
The reason for the setback change is merely just the catwalk to access the front door. It's not the building itself moving forward.
No,
The
I
building
understand.
will remain the same.
Because right now, it's almost 13 feet, is that correct? No?
Asa, do you mind?
I'm sorry, it's a little over 8 feet right now, is that right?
Yes,
And so you're changing that to something under 5 feet.
correct, because the distance is to the catwalk.
I understand that, but
Yep.
there is a structure there in that.
Correct,
Okay,
yep.
yeah. Okay, and I think you answered my other question through Mr. Acton. Thank you.
Okay. Steve, questions?
I was gonna ask the same question, but I think I think I kind of figured out that it was because of the stairs leading up to the front door.
Yep.
I'm glad to see you sort of pulled some of the dimensions back. I spoke to one of your neighbors, or future neighbors, and they were, most concerned about the lack of privacy and, you know, this house sort of looming over the other houses there, but, you know, all the other houses have already done what you're
Pretty much.
proposing. So I think they're all gonna be on sort of a level playing field at some point.
Equal looming, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you know,
sounds good.
but I am glad to see that you pulled a few things back just to make it a little bit more appealing to them. So I
Right.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Do you have a construction timeframe? Because I see there's some activity already going on across the street.
So we'll hopefully September 15th, and we'll have the two houses being constructed completed, you know, and then we'll start. So we should be in pretty good shape to be the only house being constructed on the street.
Right, okay.
Our neighbor to the left of us has indicated an interest next year.
Because there's already a
It'll
lot of
continue,
activity
so
on a
that street
little
will
tiny
continue to be
street.
torn apart for another
Okay.
year or so. But yeah, we'll work around that.
Okay.
They're pretty close. The last house on the right's virtually done. Two is in process, so that one's a little bit larger.
Okay.
I think they'll probably be done by the summer, I would guess.
Right.
So it gives us the timeline.
There's a lot of activity
There's a
on
lot,
on
yeah,
a
on the
little
back street as
street.
well.
Right,
And I
right.
think on Oyster's another one going in as well, that's still trying to go through. So yeah, it's quite a bit. Well, it's flooding, as you saw this winter. It's the only thing we can do at this point.
Yeah, and there's a big pothole on.
There's a big pot, a lot of potholes. Love to get repaired, actually.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Questions, Lee?
Yes, just to confirm, the height is still 29?
Same height, yep.
Same height,
Didn't change the height, correct.
okay. But it looks better since you reduced.
Thank you so much.
The second
Appreciate it.
floor.
Paul? Questions?
Yeah, just so that I understand, your back line is now going to be 2.88 from the property line?
That's correct, Paul.
And was that what we were discussing the last time around?
It was, we were at
You
12, we
added-
were actually one, I think we were at less than that, Paul.
You were at
Initially.
8.8.
We brought it back 8.8, right, we brought it back 2 feet, yeah. Which is essentially what we could do, given, you know, in terms of deck furniture and things, to try to live with it and enjoy it.
And on the front line, as Mr. Nixon indicated, you're closer in the sense that you have the proposed catwalk, but the house itself is not closer to the road.
Correct.
Do you know how that compares to 8 Scallop and the distance from the road there?
Which one is 8, across the street?
Across the street?
Was it like the Caruso's house? Is that 8?
Yes, correct.
It's a lot of deck, I don't know, so there's a different configuration, as the decking's in the front of that house. So I don't know in terms of their distance from the house, and that, their lot line's very different as well, because they sit back on the lot, I mean, they're very tight on the lot.
Right.
The house on 3, which is next to us, I think they got a permit, actually, a variance to get that catwalk stepped out, so their stairs actually step out of the street. So we're a little different, we're going straight to the driveway, they step
So
out.
we have an answer for the question.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The Caruso's house is 8.5 feet off the street.
Okay, thank you for that, sure.
The Caruso is what,
8.5 feet.
8.5 feet?
And that's to the catwalk on the front, right? 8.5?
To the deck, correct.
That big deck in the front.
That's to the Caruso deck. Okay. I have no other questions.
Okay. I'm just going to ask the building inspector to talk, if he would, a little bit about, building commissioner, about the mechanicals on the deck, just in case we need to know anything specific about those.
The mechanicals on the deck, I mean, every generator manufacturer is different, but you need to be 5 feet away from any opening into the structure, so I can see why they put it on the outside of that area. I know Generac, for example, they want 3 feet on the ends and 3 feet away from the front for servicing, and 18 inches away from combustibles. So I think it's gonna be a little tight with the AC where it is, but they're gonna have to work that out. That might have to change slightly. The other thing is, if it's up on an elevated platform like that, it has to be non-combustible under the generator for extending 12 inches all the way around the perimeter of that generator.
So does that all have to be in compliance before there's a building permit?
Yes,
I mean, an occupancy permit, yeah?
right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, just bringing that up for the record. Does anyone else have any other questions at this juncture? No? Oh, Dave?
Well, I would just want to confirm that the mechanicals, in terms of placement with respect to the sidelines, has that been have you looked at it that way? Yeah.
Yeah, so, good question. So we couldn't put anything to the right side because we're conforming. Ideally, we would want it on the right side of the house, but we're conforming. And on the left side, it's even more of a problem because we're 3 feet. So it's the best of the worst, I guess.
So you'd need a
scenario.
variance to put it on the right side?
Right, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
But is that part, I wasn't paying close enough attention as we read is this part of the special permit, the proximity of the mechanicals to the lot line?
Sarah can answer that.
No, it is not, because they are not located at ground level.
Oh, yeah, well, makes,
So they do not have the same requirement for,
and so elevated or whatever, they're not at ground level, the requirement's not the same.
correct.
Okay, fine. Jay?
And the only other thing, I just lost it. Oh, sorry, I'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, just make it known if you want to chime back in. All right, so at this point, Paul
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
and Dave Veach
Veach votes yes.
and Ed,
Ed votes yes.
Dave Nixon.
Yes?
And Paul
Well, yes.
and Steve.
Steve votes yes.
All right, deliberations. Paul?
Well, I've been out several times to take a look at the location and hit the pothole once, which was enough. But it seems to me that the house that's probably closest in look to what you're proposing is 8 Scallop. And I did go back and look at our hearing on 8 Scallop in 2021. And there were some of the same concerns that had been expressed here in terms of mass and the overall structure. But there was a lot of neighborhood support for the design, even to the extent of commenting on how they felt the mass was not overwhelming. I think that decreasing the size of the garage to a one-car garage helps, and that some of the other modifications in terms of the catwalk also help. There's just no way of getting around the fact that there's going to be bigger looking houses in that location. But I think you have addressed a number of the concerns that were expressed the last time around. So I think overall, I would come down saying that it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Lee?
I agree. I appreciate everything that you did, listening to the board's recommendations. I think the biggest impact of all was the reduction of the second floor. Because I think that really was contributing to the look, the mass of it. So that's a huge improvement. I think it fits in very nicely with the rest of the houses in that area. They are what they are. But I think this will be very nice, and if I were voting, I would be in favor.
Ed?
I have to admit, I'm struggling with this one. And the reason being is the increase in the nonconformity of your deck in the back. These are small lots as it is. I understand, it's not a lot to work with, but typically increasing a nonconformity is something that I don't like to see necessarily. But I was looking at, 8 across the street, and so I went and pulled the paperwork for that, because they have this, big deck in the front. But they actually reduced their nonconformity over there, because there was an existing deck already off the front of the house. And actually, when they raised the deck, they pulled it back, so they were reducing their nonconformity. And then the deck to the right, I believe they actually increased their nonconformity by about 7 feet. So, somewhat in this neighborhood, the genie's out of the bottle, I guess, is some way to put it. But I'm struggling with that increase of nonconformity because of the height also, and right now, that's a single-family, single-story house behind it, but I guess eventually, something's gonna be done with that house. So I'm struggling with that, and then the generator. I think in Chatham, we have these setbacks for mechanicals because of noise. And so you're not going to be meeting the rear setback. You do meet it, on the site. It is elevated, but the fact that it's elevated is just gonna be more noise as far as I can see in the neighborhood. So I'm not sure that's something I could approve. But I'll listen to everyone else on the board and see what other thoughts are. Thank you.
Dave Nixon.
Thank you. Yeah, I have several problems, and let's start off with what Mr. Ackman was talking about, the generator. As far as FEMA's concerned, it's a safety issue. And here I'm talking about the elevation. And it wasn't so long ago that when the flooding was in the Little Beach area, the fire department came, and because the level was up to a great number of the houses down there where the box goes in and the power goes into the house, they just shut all the power down because they were afraid of fire. And also there's the other aspects of having live stuff walking around with salt water. They don't mix. So yeah, I happen to live, I have a cottage down the street on Stage Island, and when that happened, I ran my generator for 96 hours, and that's how long there was no power, because of safety. Fine. As Mr. Acton pointed out, there's another aspect of this, and that's what town meeting proved. Town meeting proves something to, the noise of these things, and I gotta tell you, mine's a Generac, but I can hear it down the street. I mean, it is not quiet. And putting it within, I guess, 5 feet of your property line, to me, is just not acceptable. I think you would have to take it out and ask for a variance, and there's some precedent for that, even though we don't handle precedent, but we understand the possible need. But when the flooding comes down there, I doubt if you'd be there, because why would you? And you wouldn't run it anyway. So that's one thing. Number two, and Mr. Acton hit on this a little bit, I don't like it when we have something that's already a nonconformity, meaning 12 feet from your property line, and all of a sudden it's going to be 3. And I understand it's not the house, but it is the house, because that deck is designed to be used, and one of our criteria is noise. Well, gee, the rendering that I saw, nice table there, at least 4 chairs. I mean, you are right on top of your neighbors on Lobster. And so what am I trying to say? That I much prefer a deck on the front of the house, as your neighbors across the street did. To me, that's, separating yourself a little further, and our criteria about being concerned about something substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Well, the neighborhood I'm talking about is Lobster Lane. So for both of those reasons, I could not see fit to approve this the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Steve, deliberations.
I guess I share some of the previous comments. The generator, I'm not, I didn't consider that a big issue, because I think everyone there probably has a generator, and everyone's generator is going to be running probably at the same time, or not running if everything gets shut off. So I didn't really consider that to be a big factor. And I don't think you can put it anyplace else. If you put it on the side, it's going to create more problems. You can't put it on the ground because it's going to get flooded. So it does have to be elevated someplace. So unless you put it on the roof, I'm not sure what else you can do with it. So that wasn't really a big consideration of mine, because probably everyone there has got one. I kind of like the idea of having the deck in the front of the house. But I don't know if that's really conducive of having some privacy of your own and sitting out and just relaxing, because you're gonna be sort of on display on your front yard. So I don't know. I know you're decreasing some of the setbacks almost in every case. But I think probably just about everyone down there has as well. And the reason, partially, I think because of the houses are so looming, is because of the floodplain issue. How far are you actually elevating this house? About 13 feet or so? Just to get to the first floor. So that's already adding to the mass of the house, just because it's so far elevated. So I think that because of it's going to be a lot like a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood. I don't really find it detrimental, because it is so similar to what's already there.
Okay, David Veach.
Well, I like the responses that you made to the comments that you got in the meeting in December. I also agree with what Lee said. I think in many respects, pulling that, reducing that dormer somewhat on the street side made a big visual difference with respect to the apparent massing of the building. I mean, I understand, certainly understand on the entry side, street side, that, you have to have access to the house, and having the catwalk and stairs, that's part of the necessity of elevating a structure. So, there's some reduction in the setback there, but I think that's can be explained by the situation you find yourself in. As far as the deck on the other side, overall, I feel that this proposal is very much in keeping with what we've already approved, many of the approvals that we've made, and and in this particular situation, the siting of the house is short of moving the house in order to create a deck on the other side. I hadn't thought about that I hadn't given that much thought. I guess I just felt that, given the proximity of all the neighbors, and it's a close neighborhood, that I felt that by changing it from a 12-foot wide deck to a 10-foot wide deck, that I felt that I could, that I would not find that to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So, as they presented it, I think they've made improvements over our and with respect to our comments before. And I understand there's still some concerns and considerations with respect to increasing in the non-conforming nature. I feel that in the circumstances in which we find, in the neighborhood circumstances here, that those increases in non-conforming nature can be justified, and that I could support it as it is. Aside from that, I hope that we can find a way to get the votes that it needs to pass. So, thanks.
Okay, so we're at a little bit of a quagmire here. And I want to just confirm with two of the voting members that their concerns are number 3 and number 9 of the criteria. Number 3 being extent of proposed increase in non-conforming nature of the structure or use. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And also noise and litter with regard to the deck and the mechanicals.
Yeah, and the generator, correct.
Right. Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that. And we could vote, or we could perhaps have a straw vote if you'd like. What's your
So if I
pleasure?
can comment quickly, I can take the generator out. That's fine. If that's an issue, I can take it off the table completely. So I'm fine with that. So I'll just remove that for consideration, frankly. Okay, so it's not critical for me, frankly. It's a nice to have, but not critical. So if that's a concern, we'll take that off the table. So the last issue would be item 3, the deck.
It would be the extent of the proposed increase in non-conforming nature, yes.
Let me ask the question, if I may, David. What would work for you in the backyard from a decking perspective?
Excuse me, what's the question?
What would work in terms of that non-conforming in the backyard? If moving it another foot? I mean, what's the real issue? Because I'm living there now in the house, and it's essentially the same thing. I'm in the backyard, and it's the same. I'm not sure there's that big a difference moving the deck. So I'm just curious, what would help?
So
Kinda get over the
we
finish line,
don't
if you will.
necessarily answer questions at this juncture because the hearing is closed, and, so I understand that you want to ask that. I'm going to leave it up to the member if he wishes to respond or not.
That's fine.
It's certainly up to him.
No, I really don't want to say any more than my concern for the neighborhood is Lobster Lane. The noise from that deck and the noise from the generator were the two things. Now, you've solved one problem by saying, I'll take out the generator, but I don't see how that solves the problem of the deck, which is going to be 3 feet off of the property line, and it's elevated. And I think, as Mr. Acton pointed out, once you get up, the noise gets amplified. So that's why I suggested that if it was in the front of the house, it would be far more palatable to me.
So at this point, would you like to take a break and we could do another application and you can discuss it with your builder? Or would you like us to vote? Or would you like us to do a straw vote? I'm going to
I
leave
think we should do a straw vote.
a straw vote.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay, so, Dave Veach, how would you vote?
Well, as I think I indicated, I can support this as it's presented.
Okay, and Steve?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Do you have a patio now in the back, or a deck in the back?
Patio.
I know that might not count as site coverage, but how close is that to the hedge?
I can
Is the
answer that.
deck at about the same dimensions that the patio
Oh,
is?
2 feet, actually close, pretty close, about a foot, maybe within a foot.
We're going to have an answer for that.
Yeah, the patio is about a little over 3 feet to the property line.
Okay. About 3 feet, okay. Steve?
Okay, so the deck is basically replacing the patio?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
And
how would you
could-
vote?
Could I add one more thing?
No, actually, you could not, because the hearing is closed. I don't mean to be rude, but
Understood.
that's
No, that's fine.
procedure. So, Steve, how would you vote?
I would probably vote to support this.
Okay, and Paul?
Yes, I indicated I would vote to support.
Dave Nixon?
No,
And Ed?
One more question. Is there a gas fireplace?
Yes.
So instead of a generator, maybe the gas fireplace could certainly be used.
Absolutely.
I guess if you're willing to make the concession on the generator, I would go along with my other colleagues.
So you'd vote yes?
I would vote yes.
So that was pretty much a good call for the straw vote. You must be a gambling man. All right, so, Paul?
Well, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with conditions. The conditions being that all construction activity and vehicles, if it can be done, shall be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Now, that certainly is not the case now.
No, it's not.
On any of the construction down there. Is that doable?
It's doable.
All right. Secondly, that between June 15th and September 15th, there'd be no exterior construction will be allowed. No work will be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only. I guess the third one would be that there would be no generator installed, given the offer from the applicant.
Dave Each seconds.
Okay, voting. Steve?
I vote to approve.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Dave Nixon,
No.
Ed Acton,
Yes.
and Dave Veach.
Yes.
All right, 4
Right.
out of 5, you got
One,
it.
one other suggestion that I thought the last time I was out there, it might consider putting in a rinse station for vehicles down there. Given some of the standing water that sometimes,
We already have that pothole that
yeah.
serves as a rinse station. And, all right, well, you got your 4 out of 5 supermajority. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Yep, all right. Whenever Sarah is ready, we will move to the next application. Oh, I am not signing. Nope, nope.
Application number 24-021, Mark P. Calorie Revocable Trust, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 43 Arbutus Trail, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9K, Block 52, Lot G43. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling and proposed addition will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A. Such substantial alteration requires the grant of special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,380 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 2,860 square feet, where 2,900 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 24,100 square feet, where 60,000 square feet is required in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Litchfield, welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Mark Calorie as trustee of the Mark Calorie Irrevocable Trust, but in normal human terms, Mark and Angela Calorie, who have owned this house on Arbutus Trail in Chatham Port for almost 20 years. Dr. Calorie regrets that he couldn't be here. He is a physician in Boston, a surgeon actually, and he is in the process of retiring. And that explains why after 19 years of owning this house, he would like to make some changes. Mark and Angela will be moving down here full-time. They would like it to be a year-round family house. They have 3 adult, quasi-adult daughters, and they are thinking about grandchildren in the years to come, so they would like to have some more room. They also have a fairly normal desire, one which has traditionally been appreciated by the members of this board, for a garage, which the property does not now have. So this is a Bjorkland hearing, which is to say that the lot itself is non-conforming because the current zoning is R60, and this lot, like every other lot in the Arbutus Trail neighborhood, Arbutus and Bee Lane, which was a Guida subdivision from the 1950s, this lot has 25,000 square feet, where 60,000 square feet is required now. And Sarah has graciously brought up the site plan, which shows that we have a good-sized lot. We have a relatively small house compared to the others in the neighborhood, and we'll get to that when we get to that aspect of the criteria and to the chart that you have. And we are proposing to put a garage on the north corner of the lot, the street side facing Arbutus Trail, and to have an extension or addition, thank you, Sarah, in the rear. All of those changes will meet the bylaws criteria as dimensional setbacks, which are 40 feet from the street and 25 feet back from the sideline. In fact, because the layout of Arbutus Trail is wider than the paving, will be about 46 or 47 feet back from the actual street, from the physical pavement of the street. So with me today, if I didn't say it, is Ray Catarino of RJC Construction, who has been working with Mark and Angela to design a retirement home. And perhaps Ray can answer questions if there are some. But given that you've already had a lengthy afternoon, I suspect you'd like me to go into the criteria. So we start with adequacy of the site, including building coverage and setbacks. As I indicated, all of the neighborhood lots are non-conforming. We currently have a very small footprint and the lowest coverage in the area. We currently meet all setbacks. The site is entirely adequate for residential use, and it will remain adequate if you approve the construction of the two additions, the garage and the additional living space, which meet all setback, height, and coverage requirements of the bylaw. That it is completely conforming and compliant as to the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Pardon me. On the third page of the handout, we have a illustration of other lots in the neighborhood. We currently have an average size lot with a small single-story house covering only 5.7% of the lot. If you approve the special permit, it will remain compatible. The coverage at 11.8% is below the maximum. It remains consistent with the neighborhood. The gross floor area and living area are lower or less than several others in the neighborhood, and it remains compatible. As you're aware from prior ZBA hearings over the years, and just from having gone out there, this neighborhood was developed in the 1950s and 1960s. Some of the houses were built in the 70s, but a lot of them have been renovated and enlarged. Prior to Bjorkland, they were done as a matter of right unless they had existing dimensional nonconformities. But we are before you to try to seek to make changes similar to those which have occurred with other houses in the neighborhood. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, the only nonconformity is lot size. So unlike the last hearing in which some of you expressed concern, there is absolutely no increase in nonconformity. Everything that were proposed complies with the requirements of our bylaw. As to suitability of the site is suitable for the existing house built in 1972. There are no environmental issues, and the site is certainly suitable for the garage and the rear addition without impact on the natural environment. As to scale, siting, mass, views, and vistas, the existing structure is a fairly unremarkable 70s house. Nothing wrong with it, it's just not, that's why they're not tearing it down, it's just not sufficient for their planned uses. It is sited at the rear of a corner lot without impact on views and vistas. The siding will be unchanged. The facade increases due to the addition of the garage, but the scale is in keeping with the surrounding properties, and again, much of the addition is at the rear. There are no views or vistas at issue. As to compatibility of use, it is a residential use. That will not change. Adequacy of water and sewer. We have town water, and we have a Title V for 4 bedrooms. The chair will later read a comment from Judy Giorgio, and Judy and I have had a couple of conversations since her letter was written. When Ray and I started this process back several months ago, I looked at the floor plan and was concerned about the width of the doorway into the home office. So on the handout that you have in front of you, not the handout I just gave you, but the plans that I just gave you, there is a paper-clipped appended floor plan which shows a doorway widened to 4 feet. Ray sat down with Judy some months ago and discussed that, and she felt under the circumstances that would be sufficient as a casement door. After I spoke with her, after I read her comment letter earlier in the week, I spoke with Judy again yesterday and said that it is going to be a home office and we would be perfectly happy to execute a deed restriction. That proposed restriction is page 4 of the handout that you have. If this is approved, we will necessarily work with the Board of Health to make sure. Sarah, could you bring the cursor? Maybe the board's up, members have already seen it, but it's kind of down. No, we're on the first floor here. It's the second floor, I'm sorry. Yeah. That doorway can't be widened to 6 feet, but it will not be a bedroom, and we have a deed restriction indicating that this will remain a 4-bedroom house and that it will not be used as a bedroom, which we will execute. So we will work with the Board of Health on that issue. The other matters, traffic flow and safety, noise and litter, adequacy of utilities are not at issue. The issue, however, is, as you know, the question is whether the proposed additions with the garage at the street side, but the majority of the addition at the rear, with greater but still consistent living area, whether those changes are substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current structure, conforming structure, which will remain conforming on a non-conforming lot. When you drive into Arbutus Trail, B Lane from Orleans Road, you see the changes in the neighborhood. The first thing you see is a fairly good-sized house straight in front of you. and the houses that have a view down to Pleasant Bay are much, much larger than this house will be. Ours will conform to zoning. It will be expanded for year-round retirement living, and as such, the house will meet all requirements of the bylaw. And it is, again, a part of a gradual evolution and redevelopment of the neighborhood begun 70 years ago. The addition of a garage is a natural accommodation to year-round use, not an unnatural accoutrement. It is something which is consistent with what most people want today, and the future family growth warrants additional space, but this can be accomplished in compliance with all zoning requirements. So, in light of the criteria and the plans in this location, I think then you can find that the proposed additions are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Certainly be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please indicate.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Can you state your name, sir?
Yes, my name is Sal Giuliano, and I live right across the street from B Lane at 9 B Lane from this project. And I do want to speak in support of the project, and I also serve as the vice president of our little informal homeowners association. My view is that the proposed improvements will actually greatly enhance the neighborhood. As has been indicated, the neighborhood has been changing, and certainly the smaller unit, as it becomes renovate, will fit in nicely. Aesthetically, I think it's actually a beautiful design, and will be very appealing from both Arbutus and B Lane. Also, the Calories are just wonderful neighbors, and we are certain here in this neighborhood that together with their builder, they will certainly minimize any construction impact. So we fully support the project and recommend to the board that the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor, either here or on Microsoft Teams? Please indicate. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
I have,
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Yep, I jumped the gun. So, correspondence. Judith Giorgio writes, on 3/11/2024, I have reviewed the plan to add an addition to the existing four-bedroom dwelling. A floor plan of the existing dwelling is needed to confirm the existing layout. The entryway into the library office must be widened to 6 feet to meet the Board of Health requirements. The addition will not encroach on the existing septic system, and that concludes the correspondence. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate. Nope. Okay, now, questions from the board. Dave Veach.
I still have no questions.
And Ed?
Just one question. I don't know if I missed it. I apologize if I missed it. But the existing floor area, existing gross floor area now and the proposed gross floor area?
They're on page 3. Existing gross floor area, including the basement, is 2649, and with the garage, it will be increased to 5460.
No other que-
Just in answer to your question, I mean, for instance, 9B Lane is 6141, 60 Arbutus Trail is 6662, 21B Lane is 5432. So we're in the range of those.
Okay. Thank you.
Dave Nixon.
Well, one simple question, is there a member of the family that's in the whaling business?
There is not, insofar as I know.
I see, because I see there's a cupola that's gonna go here to light their way home.
When coming around from the property at 55 Linnell Lane, when you come into Pleasant Bay, you do want to look up and see some light when you come into that cove. We appreciate that some members of the board have issues with cupolas, and I discussed that with Dr. Callery. But he also pointed out correctly that it is consistent with the existing cupola on the house. So it's an architectural detail which matches what is there now.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, questions?
I have no questions.
Lee?
No questions.
And Steve?
Very simple, the existing driveway, this sort of semicircular one that remains?
That will be retained,
All
yes.
street, all street parking.
Yeah, the garage will be for the vehicles, the people who live there. And the semicircular drive, as you correctly characterize it, will be for guests and cupola inspectors.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So you have one cupola and you want another, just to be clear?
That is correct.
Okay.
Is there a light in it?
No.
Good.
There is no light in the cupola, correct?
Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted
And there will not be one in the proposed?
for the viewers.
There will not be a lighted one in the proposed. Is that correct? That is correct. There will not be, it had been proposed, and the board certainly could impose a condition that there not be a light in the proposed cupola.
Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
And Dave Veach, how do you vote?
Veach votes yes.
And Ed?
Yes.
And Dave Nixon? To close the hearing? Yes. And Paul?
Paul votes yes.
And Steve?
Steve votes yes.
All right, deliberations. Lee?
Well, I happen to be a big fan of garages as well. So, and especially if it's a year-round house. I think that this meets all of our criteria and will be a nice project.
Okay. Steve?
I think it's a nice project. It's, doubling the size of the house, but you're being respectful of all the setbacks and not encroaching on the setback, so I have no problems. I think it's a nice project.
Paul?
Yes, I agree. I think the siting is such that the lot is large enough and the location is fine, the view looks good, so I don't see a problem with it.
Dave Nixon?
Yeah, it's certainly not, detrimental in any way, shape, or form to the neighborhood.
And Ed?
Yeah, this is a rare project where you're doubling the size, and it actually fits in with the neighborhood, I think, quite well, and certainly isn't going to be substantially detrimental. So, thank you.
And Dave Veach?
Yeah, I agree with all previous, and a non-illuminated cupola would be fine in my books. Thanks.
All right, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I guess the question is, what's your timeframe?
We had talked about that. Mr. Caterino will make every effort to get exterior construction closed in by June 30th. There's not an issue with parking on site, obviously, but if the board would consider our best efforts to end exterior construction by June 30th, much will depend on Mr. Briggs's office adherence to their usual speed in issuing building permits. We're going to do our absolute best, but frankly, we don't want to get started and then have to come back to you in June and say we need another week. So if the board would not impose an exterior limitation, but instead accept our representation that Mr. Caterina will make every effort, we would be grateful.
And with respect to the idea of no work on weekends or construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.?
During the summer months, absolutely acceptable.
Okay. All right, well, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the condition that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that between June 30th and Labor Day, no work shall be permitted on weekends and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only. And I guess the final condition would be the question of the cupola. I think we're suggesting that that not be lit, so that would be a condition as well.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, vote on that. Steve?
I vote to approve as presented.
And Paul?
Paul votes yes.
Yes.
Ed votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
Okay, well, that's
Thank you very much.
unanimous.
We appreciate it.
Congratulations. What's the condition? Sarah, whenever you're ready. Last but not least.
Application number 24-025, Robert D. and Anne Marie Gallas, care of Robert Cicchetti, 91 Black Flats Road, Dennis, Mass. 02638. Owners of property located at 15 Great Hill Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 13G, Block 43, Lot C19A. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the conversion of the garage to habitable space and the construction of dormers for a second-floor office. The existing dwelling and proposed changes will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage will remain 2,105 square feet, where 2,850 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming, and that it contains 20,332 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Robert Cicchetti, I presume.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Please proceed.
Last and hopefully least detrimental project before you tonight.
To be determined.
As Sarah stated, it is an increase of habitable space over a pre-existing non-conforming lot. We're proposing to add 2 dormers on top of an existing garage, not increasing any existing square footage or lot coverage.
Do you have a copy of the criteria?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I
Can
do.
you go through the applicable criteria?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Before we do that, if there's anybody here or on Microsoft Teams. Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't know. I just got thrown off. When you, go ahead through the applicable criteria.
Okay, for the adequacy of the site, including but not limited to the maximum lot or building coverages, we're not increasing any size to the structure. The compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties, it went to historic because of the age of the building, and they approved it unanimously. The extent of the proposed increase in non-conforming nature of the structure or use is just adding 625 roughly square feet in the existing footprint of the garage. The suitability of the site, including but not limited to the impact of the neighboring properties and the natural environment, including slope, vegetation, wetland, groundwater bodies, or stormwater runoff, we're not increasing anything to impact any of that. The impact of scale really is in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood and won't impact any of that as well. And then I think 6 through 12 are really not applicable to this project, but if you think so.
That makes sense, sure.
Let me know.
Okay, so is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please indicate if so. Seeing none. Correspondence. There's one letter from the health agent, and that is from Judith Giorgio on March 20th, 2024. Hello, see attached deed restriction per our discussion. I reviewed your floor plans and agreed that the office will remain an open loft-like room with open railings at the top of and bottom. The dwelling will be deed restricted for 2 bedrooms. So there's that, and no other correspondence. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that has a question or wishes to speak against the application? Please indicate if so. Seeing none? None. Okay. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
Ed.
No questions.
Dave Nixon.
None.
Steve?
I'm maybe a little bit confused, but the narrative talks about converting the garage to habitable space, but it sort of looks like it already is.
It is.
Because there's a fence in front of the garage door, so.
Yes.
It hasn't been a garage for a long time.
No, the previous owners had done that to the garage, and when they bought it, the current owners, Anne Marie and Robert, it was already converted.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you, that's it.
Any questions, Lee?
So are you Is it gonna stay, is it gonna be a garage once again with
No,
space
no,
above?
it's currently got a ping pong table in there.
Ah, got
That's
it.
it.
Okay, so no garages?
No garage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, building commissioner has a
So the addition of the dormers alone wouldn't necessitate the need for a special permit? The whole reason that they had to come here was partially because that garage was converted into living space without any permits. So that's
Okay,
why we're here
that already
today.
happened,
It already happened.
so we're asking forgiveness. Okay,
Yeah, I think we're gonna pay a after-the-fact building permit fee, correct?
That is correct.
all right, very good, very good. Questions, Paul?
That answered my questions. I have no other questions.
Okay, I already did this side of the room, I think. Yes, all right, very good, very good. And I have no questions. Paul?
All right, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Dave Each?
Yes.
And Ed?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Paul
Steve?
votes yes.
And Paul? Yeah.
Steve
Steve?
does too. yeah.
All right, very good, very good. All right, deliberations. Steve?
I think it's a nice project. I think half of it's already been done. So I think it's a good project.
All right. Lee?
I agree, it's a really very charming house. I think it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, so if I were voting, I would vote to approve.
Paul?
I agree with my colleagues.
Dave Nixon?
100%.
Ed?
Yeah, I vote yes.
You will vote yes. Yeah, and you think it meets the criteria. And Dave Each?
Yeah, as well as, certainly the use of the, change use of garage has not been substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, or we would have heard about it, I guess. So I don't find it to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and meets our criteria, and I'll support it.
All right, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I think the only condition I can think of that would be needed would be that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner.
That's no problem.
All right, very good.
The only thing I think I like the part about work hours during the summer, not the exterior construction, but controlling the hours of work during the summer months, applying that part of the.
So you would like to add that between June 30th and Labor Day, there'd be no construction activity between 8 AM and 5 PM?
No, it's there's construction activity
Shall be
between
8 AM
those
and 5
hours
PM.
only, and no work on weekends.
Does anybody
That's no
want
issue.
And no work on weekends.
Right.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? Does anybody have any strong feelings? Lee, what do you think?
I agree with the time
Yep.
restrictions, yeah.
Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
All right, I'll move then that the application be submitted, be approved as submitted with all construction activity and vehicles be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. And between June 30th and Labor Day, no work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity shall be between 8 AM and 5 PM only.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, how do you vote, Steve?
I vote to approve.
And
Paul votes yes.
Yes.
Ed?
I vote yes.
And Veach votes yes.
All right, it's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, that concludes the hearing. What time is it, Sarah?
I will,
Oh, we need a motion to
I'll move
adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second,
And how do you vote on that?
I vote yes.
And Ed?
I vote yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Lee?
I vote yes.
And
I vote to adjourn.
And as do I. Now, that concludes the hearing, and it looks like it's about,
5:02 PM.
all right. Good night, Chatham.